What's poppin' with Scoochie guys? If you are new to the channel, welcome. If you're a subscriber, welcome back. It is a beautiful day today. It is Sunday morning, and today I just reached 3,000 subscribers. So thank you all so much for your support. Looking back a year ago when I first started my YouTube channel on January 15th, 2020, I never thought that I'd manage to get 3,000 subscribers in just a year. Originally my goal was just 1,000, and then it was 2,000, and now we're at 3,000 subscribers. Like, honestly, I'm just so humbled because I never thought that I'd be in the place where I am right now. I have a paid off Tesla Model 3 Standard Range Plus. I have 3,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I get to continue making YouTube videos for you guys, so it's just awesome. Anyways, today's video is going to be different. This is the first time I'm ever doing something like this. I am doing a reaction video to Shelby Church's 3 reasons why you should not buy a Tesla. Coincidentally, after I posted my video last week, I found out that she posted a similar video, but it was sort of like the opposite side of the spectrum. And that's why we're going to react to her video today, and maybe I will disagree with her on some things, maybe I will not, but we'll find out. Oh, and why am I sitting in my Tesla Model 3 filming a reaction video, you ask? Good question, and the answer to that is because I still don't have my own studio. I recently told you guys a few videos ago that I recently put down a deposit on a condo. So once it's fully constructed and I'm ready to move in, then I'll make more videos inside the condo. But without further ado, smash the like button since we're doing something new, and let's get started with the video.
Teslas have quickly become one of the most popular cars of today, and while I do love mine, I have noticed a few instances where I would not want to own a Tesla and I would not recommend it. So for the most part, I still absolutely love this car even a year and a half later. I don't regret buying it, for the record. I love it. But I have noticed a few scenarios that if you fall into, I really think you would regret buying this car. It's really only 3, so if you don't fall into any of these, I say do it. If you can afford it, do it.
And I've got to say, after a year and a half of owning the car, she only has 3 reasons on why you should not get a Tesla. So that's honestly not that many reasons.
If you do fall into these categories, I would seriously think about it, especially the last one. That is the one that's really the most important. All right, let's get into the 3 reasons you should not buy a Tesla. The first scenario is if you regularly go on road trips that are longer than 200 miles. I've taken this car on a bunch of road trips now.
Fun fact about road trips, if you're ever going on a road trip in a Tesla, you want to start off at 100%, but as you drive to the next supercharger location, if you can last to the next one, do that, because the lower charge that you have, the lower state of charge that you have, for example, say that you're at 10%. If you go to a supercharger and you charge from 10% all the way to 50%, it's going to be a lot faster than charging from 10% all the way to 90%. So yeah, just a little tip for you guys, and if you ever plan on going on a road trip in your Tesla, now you know how often to charge and how much to charge to.
And I found that on average, I need to stop every 120 miles to charge. It's actually a good road trip car in that there's always superchargers basically anywhere you'd want to go in America, and with autopilot, it makes it very stress-free to drive. However, I would not want a car I have to stop and charge if I was going on road trips all the time. I really don't mind it because I don't do it that often. I'm talking if you have to do a drive like this at least once a month. If you are going on road trips that are 300 or 400 miles, you know, around once a month, you will start to get a little annoyed about having to stop and charge. I've taken this car on many road trips, and the reality is I'll stop to charge it every 120, 150 miles. Even though the range of the car is 240 miles, I'm not pushing it to that limit because you start to get range anxiety, and often the superchargers don't match up perfectly to be 240 miles away. However, on a shorter road trip, it's perfect. I can get from LA to Palm Springs on one charge. I don't even need to stop to charge it at all. So for something like that, it really doesn't bother me at all. In fact, I prefer to drive this car because on autopilot, it really does most of the driving.
Autopilot literally does so much driving for me because I just pull down the stock twice, kick back, and just enjoy the sights when I'm going wherever I'm going. And if I ever plan on driving somewhere far like LA, I'm gonna be for sure using autopilot like 90% of the way. People underestimate how awesome autopilot is, and if you've never experienced it, I definitely recommend it.
Really, I don't think having to stop to charge it on a road trip is that big of a deal unless you're doing road trips all the time. So having to stop to charge it on a road trip, it can get kind of annoying, but in reality, most people aren't going on road trips more than once or twice a year. If that's you, you honestly won't mind it. The next scenario where you might want to rethink getting a Tesla is if you live in a really extreme climate. I'm talking extremely hot or extremely cold, but mostly extremely cold. Over the summer, I spent a lot of time in Palm Springs, and I saw how my range went down quite a bit faster because I was always blasting the AC. It wasn't any crazy amount, but I probably used 15 miles more of range per day than I would have when I was in LA. So not too bad, but you lose a little bit. However, I've heard it's worse in the extreme cold.
Okay, so losing range in the extreme climates, like when it's super hot or super cold, it's going to be completely normal. It's going to be a little harder in a Tesla Model 3 Standard Range Plus specifically, just because we have a lower amount of miles compared to like the long range Model 3, for example. But when you compare it to a regular traditional ICE car like a Honda or Acura or whatever, the concept is the same. When it's extremely hot, you're going to turn on the AC, you're going to lose gas, and in a Tesla, you're going to lose miles. And in the extreme cold, you're going to turn on the heat. So same thing for Teslas, you're going to lose range that way as well. There are tips available, which is to precondition your car, which is a super awesome feature. But yeah, it's just something that can't be helped regardless of whether you're in a Tesla or an ICE car. You're just gonna lose like performance, I guess.
In normal winter weather, it should be fine. Say you live in Seattle or somewhere that gets cold in the winter, don't worry about it. I'm talking 0 degrees, -5 degrees, then you might want to start worrying about it. I've never owned a Tesla in an extremely cold climate, so I don't want to say for sure that you shouldn't do this. There are superchargers in places like North Dakota, so people do own Teslas there. I think you just need to know that your range is just not going to get you as far. So if you have a Tesla with a 240-mile range, just know that you're not really going to get that 240 miles in those months where it's really extremely cold. Another thing with those extreme climates is a lot of times you need all-wheel drive, and the base Model 3 does not have all-wheel drive. You can upgrade to the performance model with all-wheel drive, but it's like $15,000 more. So it is possible.
The long-range all-wheel drive is about $9,000 more, especially with the new incentives and things like that. It's definitely affordable, but whether or not it's necessary, that's completely up to you. And a lot of people think that in a Tesla Model 3 Standard Range Plus, it's not going to give you enough range because, for example, say they commute 60 miles round trip, right? People think by the end of the day that they're not going to make it home because of range anxiety, but realistically, you're going to have about 200 miles of range in your Tesla Model 3, so by the time you come back, you should still have at least half of your charge still, and you can always plug it in overnight and then be ready the next day again.
It's possible to have a Tesla in colder, more extreme climates, but it can be more expensive if you need all-wheel drive, and your range is probably not going to get you as far. So not a total deal breaker, but something to really consider. Before we get into the #1 reason you should not buy a Tesla, I want to let you guys know about a giveaway Omaze is having where you could win $1 million.
$1 million, you guys. Anyways, we're gonna skip this part of the video because it's not really part of the video, but yeah, let's get back into it.
And now what you've been waiting for, the #1 reason you should not buy a Tesla. The #1 reason you shouldn't buy a Tesla is if you can't charge it at your house. I really think if you don't have a regular spot to charge this car, you are going to find it very inconvenient. And while you'll probably love the car itself, I think you would regret getting it if you didn't have anywhere to charge it.
Okay, if you don't have anywhere to charge it, like within a 5-mile radius, then yeah, maybe it's not such a good idea to get a Tesla. Unless, of course, you're going for the long range and you have a supercharger that's like 10 miles away. But generally, you don't need home charging. I personally have home charging, but I don't ever use it. Like, I never use it. Every time you guys see me on my Instagram stories or whatever, I'm always at the supercharger, and I honestly don't mind it because it only takes about 30-35 minutes to get me to where I want to be. And then I'm ready to go again for at least like the next week or so. So honestly, it's not that huge of a deal to me, but let's see what else she has to say.
I know this firsthand because I had to go without charging my car at my house for a couple of months, and it got old really fast. You guys may remember when I first got my car, I decided I could just plug it in with an extension cord to a normal outlet. Well, turns out months later, that extension cord was turning black. It kind of looked like it was starting to melt, and the outlet was even starting to crack. It didn't seem very safe, so I decided to stop charging it at home. Because the outlet was on the ceiling, there was no way the normal charger would stay in it. So for the last couple months living at that place, I only destination charged it. And even though superchargers are pretty quick, you can fill up your battery in like 40 minutes, I found that having to drive sometimes 20 minutes there, wait for other people to leave, charge my car, and drive home became a couple-hour ordeal.
Okay, she makes a really good point there. If you're somewhere where it's like super highly populated, finding a supercharger and finding an open stall might be more difficult, but Tesla has an update on the touchscreen where it shows how many available stalls there are, so hopefully that's a little bit more helpful. But personally, even though I live a little bit north of San Jose, I don't ever struggle with finding a supercharger. In fact, I've never waited for one. So I don't know if it's just the area that she lives in. It looks like she lives around Santa Monica, or I guess somewhere around the LA region, and that's the reason why she has to wait for these superchargers. But I guess if you're in a smaller area or somewhere that has less Teslas, then you're not really going to struggle with this.
I found myself kind of just wishing I had a normal car. The inconvenience of having to go and find a supercharger once every 3 days outweighed all the benefits of the car, and I just wish I had had a normal car at that time. This is something to think about long term because it really limits where you can move to. The last time I was looking at moving to where I live now, I really had to narrow down my search a lot just based on where I could live and charge my car. Now, I really don't mind because I prefer to live in a house than an apartment, and typically houses have at least a 110 volt outlet that you can plug your car into. But if you like living in apartment buildings, not all of them have EV chargers, and even if they do, so many people in big cities own Teslas now, you're gonna have to fight to get that EV spot. For those couple months that I had to destination charge, I felt like my car was kind of running my life. I was always trying to go places that had a destination charger, or I had to schedule out quite a bit of time to go to a supercharger. It's just not something that you want to deal with. I really think if you can't charge at your house, you would regret getting this car.
Again, debatable, but
of course, you could install a charger where you live, but if you're renting, it gets pretty expensive to do that every single time you rent. Installing one of those chargers is $1,000 to $2,000, so you really don't want to do that unless you own the home. Tesla does say they're making more superchargers, but even if you lived a mile from a supercharger, I think you'd still get annoyed of having to go charge it.
I live within a mile of superchargers and I don't get annoyed. I really enjoy it, especially when it's raining and I'm just kicking back, listening to music. It's actually pretty awesome. Plus the fact that if you have premium connectivity, you can just watch Netflix, so it's basically like what you would be doing at home. So again, personally, not a huge deal to me, but depends on you.
Also, I don't really believe that Tesla's making more superchargers because they said they were making more back in 2019. They had all these plans for more superchargers, and it's a year and a half later and I have not seen any new ones. So I would not bank on that.
So those are my reasons you should not buy a Tesla. If you made it to the end of the video and you're not in one of those categories, congrats, you should totally do it. If you can afford it, obviously. Then yes, I would recommend it. I still love mine. It still gets better each time I update it. Like, I definitely don't regret it at all. It's really just the home charging that's the biggest obstacle, but if that's not an issue for you, hey, I don't see why not. Hopefully this gave you a better idea if buying a Tesla is right for you, and
Okay, so that's the end of her video, and just first impressions, I really like how detailed she is with her answers. Like, she's not just saying like, hey, don't get a Tesla if you live in this area or this area. She really tries to reason with you and give you like a detailed explanation on why you might not want to move forward with the Tesla. And for that, I can definitely respect it. I definitely have my own opinions in terms of like the cold climate weather, the extreme hot weather, and the home charging ordeal, but I think, again, she makes a really good point, but on my side, I think that home charging is definitely not a necessity. If you have a supercharger that's like 5 to 10 minutes away from you, it's really not that big of a deal to be charging like every single week. Especially since most of us are work from home nowadays anyways, you're going to be charging it maybe like once or twice max per week. And again, it only takes about 30-35 minutes to get you all the way up to like 80 or 90%. And the fact that you could just watch Netflix or listen to music, it just cancels out all of the, I guess, trouble that you would experience. So anyways, I really enjoyed Shelby's video, and if you want to check it out, I'll have it linked down below. I personally really enjoy her videos because the transitions and everything like that, it really inspired me to make my channel better. So I definitely recommend you checking out her channel if you don't know of her. With that being said, from one Tesla owner to another Tesla owner, I really respect what she said, and I guess I can agree with her to some extent. And if you're somebody who's in one of the situations that she mentioned, it's something to consider, but honestly, I think a Tesla is definitely worth it no matter what situation you're in. Except financially, of course. If you can't afford the car, then don't get it. But overall, it's a great car to have. But anyways, let me know down in the comments below what you think of her video, and if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below. But as always, you guys, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.